Every place where we come through, there was lots of trucks. Weyburn, there must have been 250 trucks waiting. In every town that we come in, there was more joining every time. I think everybody's sick of the government that's ruining us. Other than that, everybody's just here to try get rid of this carbon tax. Why doesn't the federal government do like our provincial government? I got 20% back on my solar system. Why doesn't the federal government also give us an incentive to put this in? Instead of giving money to other countries to stop carbon, why doesn't he give everybody in Canada a chance to do like I'm doing?
We have a lot of members that are going to be negatively impacted by a carbon tax in the province of Saskatchewan. A lot of our guys rely on fossil fuels, unfortunately, to build Saskatchewan's highways and transportation networks. So there's a lot at stake here in terms of jobs and competitive advantage or disadvantage in this case for our members. We're looking at well over $1 million in additional expenses for the industry that's unfortunately going to be, offloaded onto the taxpayers because the major procurer of our service is government, whether it's provincial, federal, or municipal. So ultimately, the taxpayers are going to be, facing a heavier burden because of this.
But we're going to make polluters pay and put money in your pockets.
There is an imperative to put a price on pollution, and if there are costs associated with for average families, we will more than compensate those families for those costs.
Well, how are they going to do that? They talk about this rebate as if you're going to get the money back, and then you're going to get a premium, so you're going to get even more money back. How do they calculate that, though? That was a part that was lost from the conversation.
Let me sort of describe my overall policy. What I've said is that we would put a cap-and-trade system in place that is as aggressive, if not more aggressive, than anybody else's out there. I was the first to call for 100% auction on the cap-and-trade system, which means that every unit of carbon or greenhouse gases was emitted would be charged to the polluter. That will create a market in which whatever technologies are out there that are being presented, whatever power plants that are being built, that they would have to meet the rigors of that market and the ratcheted down caps that are imposed every year. So if somebody wants to build a coal power plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece I find very interesting and enlightening. A mainstream broadcaster that actually covers the issue of climate change in a fair and balanced manner. Well, sort of. Unfortunately for us, in Canada, and regrettably, we will have to journey all the way to Australia to get a halfway balanced view on the subject. Even then, it's not all what you expect. It's actually one news network attacking another, something unthinkable in Canada and only done in veiled attacks in the US. No need to worry though, because in the UK they don't go in for that sort of thing, because obviously they're all singing from the same UN hymn book. Now this piece is not very long, and it's quite extraordinary for us in Canada to hear something like this, particularly with the likes of Herr Trudeau in charge, and non-gender there, its sidekick Barbie on atmosphere control. That's climate change, by the way. Here's the piece. It's actually from Sky News Australia. I hope you enjoy it, because I sure did. And as usual, the links will be on my site when I can get to them. Oh, by the way, the piece is called ABC Hates Debate on Climate Change because it wants, quote, alarmism. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Here's the piece.
I do want to focus, though, on the ABC and climate change. The ABC, a taxpayer-funded national broadcaster, seems to hate any discussion or debate on climate change. They want just full-on talk about climate alarmism, no discussion of varying scientific perspectives, no discussion of alternative policy responses, no discussion of how alarmist predictions and modelling have always failed to materialise, the climate stubbornly failing to behave according to the predictions of Al Gore and the ABC's own Tim Flannery, let alone many of the climate scientists. They don't want to talk about any of that. And last night on their Media Watch program, they had to go at this show because we dared to discuss the facts and the reality. Here's a clip.
Last week, Chris Kenny greeted the news that New South Wales schools will be getting more climate science in the Year 12 curriculum by seeking comment from the IPA, whose expert on Western civilization told him
they're going to hear, hopefully, that climate change is not necessarily man-made and that there might be other reasons why the climate's changing.
Kenny, of course, agreed.
Yes, Paul, I agreed. There are other reasons the climate changes. What a scandal. What a breakthrough moment for the ABC. Yes, Paul, if you've ever got time to do any reading during your busy schedule, I know, producing 15 minutes of spin every week, you might understand that the climate has always changed long before carbon emissions, and you might even read the IPCC reports. It's the Bible, of course, of climate scientists and climate alarmists, and you might read that there are obvious and clear statements in the IPCC reports like this one. It is extremely likely that more than half of the observed increase in global average surface temperature from 1951 to 2010 was caused by the anthropogenic increase in greenhouse gas concentrations and other anthropogenic or human forcings together. There you go, Paul. It's extremely likely that more than half of the changes are forced by our emissions. What about the rest? Extremely likely that up to half of the climate changes. What caused those changes? What are the factors there, Paul? Solar changes, planetary orbit changes, variations on Earth around our ocean and air cycles? Would it be okay for the ABC if kids learn about those elements of the science? Would it be okay for the ABC if we discuss any of this? Or is it only propaganda that's allowed? Are we all to be like the taxpayer-funded group-thinking automatons at the ABC and we're only allowed to read from an alarmist and simplistic script?
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We are also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can now hear a weekend review of our podcasts on WHBJ DB. News Talk Radio. Join us and many others, and you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.